Just do one for a pirate.
Just do one.
Yeah, it's your pirate patch, bro.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Arcane Games and Events YouTube channel. We have got something very exciting for you. And if you know anything about me, I am definitely going to make you wait, at least for a little bit, before we get on into it. But I have some friendly guests to help me show off our spoiler card from the high seas, and they are particularly suited to do so. So without further ado, here is our panel to go ahead and discuss our spoiler card. From the top to the bottom, we've got myself, Bryce Platts, Joshua Rath in the green screen with the card eye patch. It looks like a cerebellum processor for an eye patch. Then we've got Anthony Pham, who is so devoted to his namesake Come to Locals that he is at Locals voting in right now. Then we've got Jake Torres and Patrick Rubicalva, all of them share in common being members of the AGE Pro Team. But they also share something else in common, and they have been handpicked for this spoiler for a very specific reason. Let's turf it over to Josh Goggles, Josh Rath. Josh, what do you and these fellow compatriots of yours have in common?
Well, we're very much mech enjoyers. We all love mech. Doesn't really matter the build. We've got some -IO reps. We've got some -IE Classico, with just boosting, as our good Anthony Pham loves to do. And we love to slam some Tree Frog Dash every so often just because we like shooting the gun a lot. And there's some guns in this set, so excited that there's a new gun.
Yeah, so besides Come to Locals, Anthony Pham is known for another phrase, and that's F 'em boost. Unfortunately, this spoiler might be a little bit of a disappointment if that is your namesake phrase. But so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Before I do, though, let's prolong the magic just a second longer. I'm looking at the Arcane Games and Events homepage here. If you would like to get out to an AGE Open Series near you, all you have to do is navigate to our site. That's age.events, and then you can buy tickets from the play menu. We've got 2 opens coming up in May, one in Los Angeles on the 24th, and then one in New England on the 25th. So if you're in either of those regions, New England specifically is kind of around Boston. May in Los Angeles is going to be more around Riverside. We'd love to see you. And I will be casting the LA Open along with a couple other familiar faces, and we would love to have you there. So, boys, should we talk about a spoiler card? I guess we should go down the line real quick and get some hot predicts real quick. Josh, what do you think this card is?
Let's see. I think we've gotten a lot of gun-themed ones so far, so I think it's going to be something with buffing the gun, and then maybe you just make a cog, and the cog gives you an action point.
Okay. Anthony, are you able to unmute right now and give me a prediction?
I am. Yes. Hi guys, I'm live from the army. I'm playing Yarn. I just got paired into Prism, so that's great. I predict this game is going to. This card will be what I said earlier. It's going to be like Pulse Wave Harpoon, where when this attacks you, the defending hero reveals their hand equal to the amount of cogs you've tapped this turn, and then you get to put a card on the chain, kind of like that one Evo card. Pulse Wave Protocol, I think it's
Okay, Pulse Wave Tap Hoon is the next prediction. Jake, you've had plenty of time to think. What you got, bud?
Maybe it's... So I'm going to piggyback on Anthony here. Maybe it's similar to that, but instead of looking at the cards of your opponent, maybe it untaps that many cogs you've activated for the turn. It's definitely a buff, though, for sure.
What makes you say that?
Just based off the tiny pixelated screen image I've seen.
You also keep asking me if it's an old guy in the art. What makes you think it's an old guy?
I'm not wearing my glasses, so I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
That was that was the first thing Jake said to me. Is it an old guy in the art? I was like, dude, I still can't tell you. Patrick Rubicalva, -IO enthusiast. What do you think this card is, my guy?
I think it's a buff too. That seems to be a safe call, but I'm going to say it's a buff specifically to a gun.
Okay, that's what we've got. We've got all of our predictions locked in. Would everybody like to see a card or what? Let's get the drum roll going. Let's ride the hype train all the way over to the spoiler slide. I'm going to describe it very quickly, and then I'm going to get all of these fine gentlemen's reactions. So, without further ado, our spoiler card is... Perk Up It is indeed a buff. It costs 1 in the red. It blocks for 2. It says your next Mechanologist attack this turn gets +4. You may untap your hero. Go again. I did see the correct prediction in chat. Congratulations to whoever threw that down. I think it was our Pitch It To Me podcast friends. But let's go ahead and come back to the boys. Once again, for Anthony, who can't be looking at the stream right now, Perk Up is the name of the card. It costs 1. It's red. It does indeed have an old guy on it. He looks very much like the, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but the doctor guy from Back to the Future. Oh, it does look like the Overload guy as well. Yeah. And it says your next Mechanologist attack this turn gets +4. Not attack action card. Can be used to buff up a weapon. And then it says you may untap your hero. Go again. So, gentlemen, Perk Up. What do we think?
I like the general sort of pumps to Mechanologist attacks, specifically with the new Max Armory deck that has a lot of utility because you can add it to the wrenches and do cool stuff like that. I am still very much trying to figure out how the untapping mechanic is going to work, and what applicability that will have to the Mechanologist heroes that we all know and love, given that they don't seem to be able to do that. So I don't know. I'm optimistic on what this can do, and presumably, I don't know. Do we know if this is a rainbow card or if this is just in red?
We do not know. I think we can kind of assume because it is in the common slot. But that being said, I like what you talked about in regards to how it relates to the other Mechanologist heroes that we know and love. What I have for you gentlemen here in order to take this discussion to the next level is my first thoughts with what we know about what a Puffin Hightail deck could look like. And I think the main thing that you need to notice, and the main thing that I feel like is indicative of the way this hero is going to play, is that there is not a single boost card in this entire deck. So, Anthony, it's not going to be FM boost. It's going to be FM don't boost. I don't know, FM cog, something like that. So I think the answer to your question, Patrick, at least at this current juncture, is like she might just do something completely different. And I think this is something that LSS is very willing to do when they release new heroes of a similar class, especially when they have a talent, or in this case, a separate class to kind of tack on to their style. They don't mind having them completely deviate. I point to Riptide, Lurker of the Depths, as my prime example of like a very off-kilter ranger. So this is my humble opinion of what a Puffin deck is going to look like. Go ahead and take a look, boys, and tell me what you think you notice. But I really think this is going to be a boostless Mechanologist. Josh, first impressions.
I was gonna say my first impression is that like this feels like a Tunic deck, and that was like the first equipment I was looking for, where it's like we're playing Tunic, we're playing a very tall mech, which I think is not really a mech we've had before. Pretty much all of them have gone wide to some extent. Even like Pistol Dash is like you're just shooting the gun a bunch. So we're playing like Tunic, we're playing all these really big attacks, and we're playing these pumps, so that we're gonna be able to like use the big attack, or we like shoot the gun, give the gun go again, and then have some big attack that benefits our game plan afterwards. Really just like I want to play 6 CNCs and 6 pummels in this deck is what it feels like.
Tell you what. Speaking of, I do have some pummels in here, but I did try to do something a little spicy and opt for the yellow one, specifically because they're targetable by things like Sunken Treasure and Portside Exchange. So kind of leaning into the banana flavor that Pirate seems to have interwoven into its class identity. I see that Anthony is shuffling up and drawing 4 cards, so I'm going to go ahead and skip him for a quick moment and head on down to Jake Torres. Jake, what do you see? What do you like?
I really actually kind of like the inclusion of Plasma Mainline if I'm thinking it works the way that I think it does. Because if it works on the cogs and being able to stick those around for more than one turn, I think is a great inclusion. Especially because it does seem that we're making cogs pretty consistently. Especially with that new card that we just foiled, Perk Up. Being able to untap your hero basically means that you already had a cog out, and so you untap it again and destroy another gold, make another cog, and then you just basically just draw a card for free just based off that one card alone, right? So I like the inclusion of Plasma Mainline if it works that way.
Or the specific use case scenario I like for Perk Up, in contrast to some of the other buffs that we've seen thus far, is, for example, Pitch a Blue, play Perk Up at a time where you already have one cog and 2 gold tokens. You play Perk Up, you activate Puffin, you create a golden cog, crank it, of course, to get your action point back. You're activating Puffin first, then playing Perk Up, untapping, creating a 3rd golden cog, and then using the last 2 resources to send Palantir Aeronaut with the thrice per turn instant activated, of course. So I think Perk Up is probably going to be, like somebody else alluded to earlier on, like the most important of these buffs, which is why currently it's the only one that I have included. I did go ahead and put, pull back. I think it's draw back the hammer, and where's the other one? Tighten the screws in the maybe board. But I really think that this is the one that we want to be running. Maybe tighten the screws as well, because it kind of facilitates Palantir Aeronaut as well. Patrick Rubicalva, talk to me.
Yeah, I'm very much processing. My cogs are working on the inside here. I'm trying to think about like how the flavor of going tall is going to work with these various new cards. I have my phone up here because I'm trying to remember the name of them, but like Palantir Aeronaut. And the thing I like about them is they all seem to incentivize, or I guess give your opponent a reason to be blocking you. And if we're going tall like that, we're going to put our there's one of them. I don't remember the name of it down yet, but it gives overpower. So that's a great way to sort of close the game against certain decks. Also, you're going to quickly present the opponent with a space where they are forced to block, and maybe you're pumping your Palantir Aeronaut. You're able to tap your cogs, blow up their defending card, and push through that last bit of damage. So it's very intriguing to me here, and I'm still just really excited to see these. I was sort of, I don't want to say skeptical, but I was having to unlearn all of my boosting 5 chain links wide turns, and this seems like a really cool and flavorful way to do that. So kudos to LSS.
Well, and I think it was kind of necessary based on the limited format, right? I don't know if any of you have ever drafted Arcane Rising before, but if you remember, when the Mechanologist class is diluted by 2 or 3 other heroes, it is next to impossible to put together a boost deck that you can actually rely on to boost and not end your turn. So I think it was a decision of necessity in order to make Puffin actually viable in Limited. And I think that's why we're not seeing a whole lot of boost here. I also think that's why back in the days of Bright Lights, like Mechanologist was the perfect class, even though it was not the most popular set. I think it was the perfect class to target from a limited standpoint to make, like the all class set, because otherwise, boost simply doesn't work. So I'm from the beginning, I was kind of primed to think that this was going to be a boostless Mechanologist, and I'm kind of excited to see it come to fruition here.
Yeah, and of course, there's also opening up the to that in the design space of being able to run these really cool cards like Pummel and CNC that and to a lesser extent Wage Gold, that I as a non Tree Frog Dash player have just never been able to do while enjoying the Mechanologist class. So really excited to give this a try.
I am also incredibly thankful, by the way, that we're the last spoiler of the day, because without cards like Cog in the Machine and Loan Shark, I was really struggling to try to figure out exactly how this deck was going to work. But that being said, it's kind of been like building on to things as I've seen cards come in throughout the day. And I think we might actually be in kind of a cool spot. One of the things I had in really early on, which I think could still make it in the deck, but we'll see about that, is where are you, buddy? It was Test of Strength, which I thought would be a really hilarious thing if Mechanologists were clashing, because it just looked like there was going to be a bunch of big attacks and then and we were gonna struggle to make gold. But now that I see the other cog cards, it made its way into the maybe board. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear.
Yeah, and I
Jakey
think
boy.
something that I'm
No,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Josh. Go
say,
ahead, Josh.
something that I feel like LSS has become very good at doing, which I think is very much portrayed from this set, is containing new heroes to very much like containing's not the right word, but like uh very much trying to push forward the fact that when they print new heroes, they want as much of the deck they want that hero to play within the set. So you're not having to go back to like Arcane Rising and be like, man, I gotta go get my Teklo cores or something, or some other sort of Majestics or other boost cards from that set, and be like, oh man, I gotta go get all these boost cards from all the old sets because this is another boost mech, and this I don't think Puffin is gonna be playing that style very much. It feels very much like we are gonna be like, you play a pump, like 3-card hand, play a pump, play a big attack, make a bunch of cogs, and feel good about it.
Jake, are you excited to not be boosting your entire deck away, or does this
Yeah.
not jive with you?
No. This definitely has my attention. Puffin first got revealed, I was a little skeptical, just because the past few mechs have just been nothing but boost, and I'm tired of fatiguing myself.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, being able to just throw like big guardian attacks while making cogs and doing a bunch of tricks that mechs typically do is pretty exciting to me. I would say I would probably throw soup up in this deck, the 0/4 if an
Yep.
item you
It's
own
in the
just
maybe board.
it has go again. Yeah, I think that card would probably be pretty good. And
Honestly,
plus it just
the only reason
go ahead.
it came out was because I was really trying to make my test of strength tech work. But
Fair
I was
enough.
definitely looking through a lot of galvanize cards.
And yeah, that's the other thing. I think the galvanized keyword might come back and help us be a little more block block a little bit better. Just because we are running a lot, like if we are running a lot of these non-attack actions that only block for 2, I could see galvanize coming back and letting us block more by utilizing those cogs.
Speaking of which, I am like was so unimpressed with this card, Golden Skywarden, when it was first revealed. Like I knew there had to be a plan for it somewhere, but on its face, in a vacuum, it was like such a blah card. Pay 4, swing for 7. Sure, it's Pirate Mechanologist, whatever. But the Galvanize on this only gives +1, and you need multiple golden cogs in order to make it worthwhile. But now that I see the way the rest of the deck works, I'm thinking of a turn where, for example, God forbid, on turn 1, I play cog in the machine. I double crank, get an extra action point, do something with those 2, and then I draw into Golden Skywarden. Like converting golden cogs back into gold tokens and saving them for later is probably going to be absolutely insane, and also getting some extra block value to boot.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, being able to just like recycle the gold and the golden cogs like back and forth, I think is a very cool mechanic.
And furthermore, why don't we just mention you pitch 2 blues for this bad boy, and then you've got enough to pay for a pummel as well. So it could even be a good card when you're bricked up with the boys.
Oh boy.
I'm curious to know, Bryce, given and the image, by the way, the image of you like cramming all the cards that were revealed today to be ready with this right before we hopped on is very funny to me. But if you gave any thought to the 2 guns that were spoiled earlier today for Puffin and why you chose to go with the pistol for this list.
I'm glad you mentioned this, Patrick, because it is a point that we really need to discuss. Because I don't think I am definitely, just at a first glance, I'm definitely drawn to Spitfire more than Cogworks Blunderbuss. I just think that this deck is already going to be so resource hungry. In the way, the way I was having to build this deck before I saw these weapons was very much with tight resources in mind. So maybe that changes now that is not really a restriction for me anymore. But that being said, what actually like I had the pistol in there because I had to have the pistol in there because I didn't have any other options. And then I was also super drawn. I was looking through yellows that I knew I was going to have to play because like the pirate blocks and whatnot are what help us generate gold tokens, and those require you to be discarding yellows. And my immediate thought was, what if we were running a crap load of blues and we were able to stick an induction chamber and then pull off dual threat with like one of the zero costs. I was mainly thinking about Sky Skimmer. You know, you have a cog out. You send pistol, activate induction chamber, give that go again. You send Sky Skimmer, give that go again by tapping a cog, and then I guess you have to have 2 induction chambers. So then you shoot the Tecloplasma pistol again after playing dual threat, and then screw it, send Palantir Aeronaut or something like that. Was really enticing to me. Again, that was for a deck building consideration that I could kind of throw away once we saw these golden cog generators. But bottom line, thinking about those lines did make me realize that like Tecloplasma pistol is just so good at sinking extra resources into just in series of 1s and 2s and 3s. I mean, you guys know this. You've been playing Dash forever, and you're drawn to this weapon, I think, for very good reasons. So I think it's just such an elegant solution because you typically don't seem to leave anything on the table in terms of your resources. That all being said, we have to be prepared for Dash IE's eventual LL in the future, especially if she's getting some new tools with which to work. So that being said, I would probably pick Spitfire to be the shoe-in afterwards, because I still think that if you build a good deck and your resources are super tight, shooting something, even if it's 2 for free, is still a really cool little add-on to what is probably still going to be a pretty nasty turn.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm still sort of trying to wrap my head around, to the extent to which we're going to be able to utilize these golden cogs that we're creating. Because, and then that, at least that gun, I already forgot the name of which one. Was it Spitfire? That was the one we like.
Mm-hmm.
At least gives us something to utilize that resource, because you don't want to be stuck in the worst case scenario where you created the cog and then 2 turns pass and it's just gone. Which is another reason I think the blocking of the Sky Warden that you were talking about a little earlier today is maybe deceptively, because obviously 2 is not great, but any of us who have played with Soup Up and other galvanized defense cards know sort of how great that is in turning nothing into something. And so I'm imagining a world where maybe you have a bunch of cogs that are going to go away at the beginning of your next turn, and maybe this is blocking for 5 or something like that.
And furthermore, I figured that is probably just going to be the way that Puffin is going to be living. Like, you're going to be generating these cogs. Sometimes you're going to draw your Palantir Aeronaut or your Cogworks Dovetail, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And sometimes you're just not. And those cogs are going to go the way of the birds, or the parrot, I guess I should say, the way of Polycranka. And you're going to be forced to kind of just lose value there. So I did go ahead and try to pump in as many random galvanized cards as I possibly could. Torque Tuned specifically was chosen because it has a little bit of evasion in overpower, and it's also a 2 cost for us to use our pummels. Maybe if we just run the playset of 3, maybe we throw in a blue or a red on top of that. But so that was kind of the way I was thinking about the deck in general. I do want to come back to the point about boosting your whole deck away, because I was just looking through every single mech card I possibly could, and I came across this one from Arcane Rising, Dash's Inception, Cognition Nodes, which I think might actually be kind of cool in this deck, specifically when you're up against fatigue, or where you want to be doing a lot of blocking. I'm just thinking about situations where you are just recurring a Palantir Aeronaut, or it's any attack action card, or even like a CNC or some 7 power attack over and over and over again, and basically, making your own drone of brutality at home. Anybody else tried this card in the past? I'm definitely not a mech enjoyer.
I tried it once. This was like way back in the day, before like bright lights and stuff, and it didn't go very well just because the support for mech wasn't there at the time. But I know certain Teklovossen decks are on this card at the moment to combat like fatigue, or like just to recycle their big like overpower attacks when they have all the mech suits out. So like the Annihilator engine or like the War Machine and stuff like that. So just getting your key big attacks back with they already have the evasion built on them, such as Overpower, seemed to really help Teklovas and decks recently. So it could be something there.
I think there could definitely be something there because I think so far outside of like Skywarden, pretty much all the mech cards are like cost 2, like cost 2 or less, all the attack action ones. So you could just have your blue, you activate this, and it's like, hey, if this attack hits for 6, or if you can like pump it and make it hit for like the 1 extra when you tap the cog, you're suddenly like very evasive, and it's like, hey, you can't actually fatigue me because I have all these cogs and I'll just hit you regardless. Maybe there could be something here to getting anti-fatigue, but also we're just throwing so many big numbers. Maybe we're living a little bit of dreamland and we're letting Bryce cook in the kitchen for too long.
I've definitely been in the kitchen for too long with too little information. There's no doubt about that. But it's fun nonetheless, right? To come out with some hot takes for a new hero. Speaking of which, I do want to talk about gold baited hook for a little bit. And it is a choice, especially when Mechanologist has such better blocking equipment at its disposal. But I had it in immediately because I just felt like gold tokens and therefore golden cog tokens were going to be a huge issue for this deck. Again, now that we've seen a couple more spoilers, there are other ways we can make that happen. But when I was reading this card over and over again, I was drawn to the first line. It says your next pirate attack. It's not attack in general. It must be pirate. And then I started looking through these cards. Oh my gosh, Palantir Aeronaut is not pirate. Oh my gosh. I was looking at pretty much every other Mechanologist attack. I was like, we have no pirate attacks. Oh my god, what are we going to do? And so I already had Wage Gold in there for more gold token generation. But I also noticed, like, dude, because pirate is a class, Wage Gold also counts as pirate. So you have so many more outlets for gold baited hook that it like kind of cemented itself in my mind as the de facto arm piece for this deck. And I think in general you're gonna have some really nasty numbers coming out of it. I mean, even Conqueror of the High Seas is going to be pretty easy to resolve for 8 go again. So I tend to think that gold baited hook is not too much of a bait for yourself and that you can actually get a lot of value out of it over a long game, which Puffin, at least in this iteration, is definitely going to want to go long. Any vetoes from people that know Mechanologist a little bit better than I?
I think we'd have to see some more pirate attacks for it to be completely viable, I think.
Yeah, because so far, like, all of the generic pirate attacks are like limited focus because they all refer to Treasure Island. So I think if we got some other generic pirate attacks that were like maybe a little more playable, then I'd be super on board for this. That being said, though, like, Mech's arm slot right now has pretty much always just been Battle Worn 1 anyways. Or +2 damage, so like sometimes having the on hit, because the downside of this getting destroyed is only when you activate it, right? So like,
Correct.
You just finally you draw your pirate card and you're like, all right, I'm gonna finally activate it and attack you with my pirate card, and then so you can just get some extra value that way. Again, I think like this is a perfectly fine inclusion because it's Mech's arm slot is pretty open to being changed anyway, so we might as well have something that gives us on hits.
I do want to take a pause real quick. Mara Ferris is in chat. Mara, we definitely are on adaptive plating. Be sure that I included that in the inventory. Not that this is at all a tournament ready deck, but I would never leave adaptive resolver and adaptive plating at home. No sirree, Bob. But I just have gold plated hook as the main board because it makes sense to me. So you guys bring up a good point. There still seems like there's a vacuum for more pirate attacks. But let's go ahead and go over what we do have. We have Conqueror of the High Seas, a nasty pirate attack, which maybe you can't depend on hitting for gold baited hook because your opponent is really incentivized to block this the majority of the time if they have an arsenal. We have Wage Gold, as I already mentioned before. So that's 6 attacks essentially that are pirate. Golden Skywarden, in addition to being pummel worthy, is also a pirate attack, and comes in at a breakpoint, which I think is also kind of indicative as to why like its stats seemed a little bit lackluster. I'm tending to think that pirate keyword on an attack is going to come kind of at a premium in general. Also, one of the new what I'm calling ship attacks that we got today is also pirate, also cost 2, which means that it's pummel worthy. So we're already at, what is that? 4 times 3 is 12. And that's just what we've gotten so far. So that's my continued defense of gold baited hook.
I think
All
it's
valid
also,
points.
I think it's also what you were just hovering over, Jolly Bludger, I think it's called.
Oh, it's bludger. I
and
called
think,
it bulger. I don't know why.
oh well. It's I think, I don't know if we've discussed this yet, but it strikes me that this would be a really interesting hero to see in the mirror, and would also be very strong against other mechanologists that are sort of setting up a board state, because at least the mechanologists I've traditionally been playing, the go wide mechanologists aren't that interested in blocking, and we just have so many disruptive on hits in this deck, not even including the pummels that you're theory crafting right now. And then if this one hits, I can imagine some scenarios where that's just game over. Like, if it's for any number greater than 1.
In addition, I kind of feel like the second line of text here, when this deals damage to a hero, steal that many items they control, is never going to be irrelevant, because we have, I mean, if this deck is anywhere near to what a Puffin tournament ready deck is, we've got money where your mouth is, which means that we're wagering gold tokens. We've got wage gold, which means we're wagering gold tokens. So I don't know, like I can conceive of a world where it feels really good to wage kind of with impunity, because you've got Jolly Bludger in the deck, and you can always steal gold tokens back that your opponents have gotten from winning, wagers, or heck, even clashes sometimes.
Right. And that's just this set too. We're not even talking about, what if this takes an E-pot or a Teklo core?
A healing potion.
Yeah.
Or 3 if Verdance is trying to set up the combo against you.
Or Verdance. Especially because Verdance might actually try to combo you, because this deck is going to have like 30 blues and 30 big attacks. And you're like, oh, we've got all this block value and all this damage. And now it's like, I'd like all your healing potions, and then I'm going to use them myself.
Or if we steal Bolton's necklace.
See, now that's just rude.
Well, it's an item. I'm sorry.
I'd probably just let him keep it, honestly. I feel bad for the guy.
All right.
He hasn't really done anything since he's been on mental block, right, Jake?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay, let's talk about let's talk about some less exciting things, but some that could actually be good. I put Ripple Away in here because, again, I was trying to make sure that Test of Strength always hit something. But also, then I was like, there's going to be a lot of action cards creating tokens in this set, especially against, pirate mirrors. I tend to think that Ripple Away could be a really nasty card. Like, for example, your Puffin mirror opponent plays Cog on the machine, you discard Ripple Away and laugh. Could be pretty sick.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of the pirate cards, Tip the Barkeep, where, man, creating a gold kiss from would be great. And then you can have this like Puffin deck where you are like deceivingly wide, where you just have this gold kiss from sitting around, and if you ripple it away, they're just like, oh, that's painful. Because maybe they needed that extra gold kiss run to be able to go a little wider on you, or really get that extra value going.
Yeah, discard a card, rob an action point.
There's so many cards that create gold tokens. Like, there's so many cards so far.
So besides, go ahead, Patrick.
One thing I was sort of intrigued by was, and looking at this list you've theory craft, and I guess what we might know about Marlin and Gravy Bone so far, it seems like Warmonger's Diplomacy could be a card
Definitely.
that is very effective, maybe against all three heroes. And I'm just wondering how bad that would feel. Yeah, I mean, obviously it sort of neuters our spoiler card, but I don't know to what extent we can build Puffin around while trying to respect Warmongers.
I honestly, at least in this iteration, I kind of tend to think that our card is the only one that feels extremely bad into Warmongers, because the majority of the time you could just, with the exception of Cog in the Machine, you could just elect to kind of pitch these non-attack action cards away in order to pay for an attack. Like Portside Exchange is a blue block 3 that you're probably only playing in the early stages of the game, maybe like turn 1, turn 0 kind of vibes. Right now, I feel like you're kind of just insulated from Warmongers based on the agency you have with the cards. That being said, obviously, if you're running more of these pumps, if you're running Drawback the Hammer or Tighten the Screws, then you might be a little more susceptible. But at least in this current iteration, I'm feeling pretty darn good. Like, I honestly don't have even that many items with Go Again. So I could see a world where they say Warmongers, you say Peace. You go Cog in the Machine, Lone Shark, establish an induction chamber or plasma mainline, and laugh.
Yeah, or maybe you go the other way and hit him with one of your 6 pummels.
There you go. I am curious.
6.
I do want to go back to the weapon discussion. Do we have any differing opinions about whether or not it's Tecloplasma Pistol, Spitfire, or Cogworks Blunderbuss? Yes.
I think at a baseline, until -IE is gone, I think Tecloplasma Pistol is just gonna be the best mechanologist weapon. Like, it's hard to get around, like, when you are able to create all those extra action points, just paying 1 to be able to shoot for 2 whenever you want. Even on like the early turns, it's just like a hand filter where it's like, these cards all suck, and I'd like to keep this one. But once -IE is gone and we have to go to new gun, sadly, I think Spitfire is probably the best default one. I think Cogworks Blunderbuss has potential, maybe in like kind of a more pre-froggy style, where you can make all these cogs and you just run like 3 purifiers, and you can kind of maybe skip out on actually running induction chambers.
Oh wow, dude!
Maybe...
Oh no, Purifier is pistol. Unfortunately,
what the heck?
Yeah,
this all sucks. All right,
Purifier and induction chamber are
Spitfire is just the better gun.
Yeah.
But no. Also, Cogworks Blunderbuss may lean more into, if you do decide, hey, I'm gonna do like an aggro build with like, I think Max kind of played it in Bright Lights Limited, where you played like a pump, you did like your big boost attack, and then you attacked with the weapon. Like, this Blunderbuss could play into that pretty well if you actually wanted to make Puffin a boost deck. Play it lower to the ground and just like run Tecmo Foundry hard, and you just start banishing your entire deck.
Yeah, I guess the nice thing about Blunderbuss as well is that it just works very nicely with the remaining pumps that we've seen so far, because they're all 1 costs. Just 1 cost into 2 costs. You're shooting for 6. I don't know if that's necessarily like something you want to be doing all game, because it's not, slightly above rate like a Guardian Hammer is or anything to that effect. But, there's a world where that could be relevant.
Spitfire is probably just the better option, though, as a default. Just because it doesn't cost anything. And I don't think this deck is going to have any issues creating action points. And with Puffin's ability, honestly, the amount of times you're able to just draw a card might be quite high as well. You're just like, here's... Like, you block 2 cards, and it's like, I still have a 4-card hand, or it's like, I still have my arsenal plus 3 cards. Because I just made two golden cogs, and I drew a card.
Let's at this point, I think we're kind of all semi-aligned on Tecloplasma Pistol. Why don't I just for the sake of discussion, Jake, give me a yay or nay. Like, do you second what Josh said about Tecloplasma Pistol?
Yep.
Patrick?
Definitely.
Great. The floor recognizes Tecloplasma Pistol, and we will move on in the discussion. I want to move from this subject to the second line of text in Puffin Hightail. The second time you crank each turn, draw a card. The one thing I will say about this build is because I'm running, in this instance, 21 blues, 18 yellows, perhaps even more in the future. Like my biggest fear, I guess, with this build is that whenever I am incentivized to double crank, I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to draw anything worth a damn. Granted, maybe you just change the way you think about your random draws. Like maybe you're just looking for resource cards, maybe like Guardians would be doing. And that's kind of like the way you craft your turns around double crank. But that's like the only part of this theory crafted build that makes me feel like it's not exactly jiving with the way the hero works. Thoughts on that?
I think my initial thought is like the second hero ability helps you lean into running things like Boom Grenade. Oh no, did we lose Patrick?
We lost Patrick.
Man down.
Pour one out for a fallen ally.
Like Boom Grenades being added to the deck could be an interesting thing where you just play like double Boom Grenade, crank them both, and then you just draw a card for free pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
As I had as an eye patch, the cognitive processor, where you just like play this and now you can have 2 card draw in a turn if you like crank a cog and then you play the processor and get a second card draw. So I think there's a lot of potential for like an aggro item build.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we had in the past.
Yeah, and I was definitely thinking that way. And then like when my cursor was hovering over Boom Grenade, I was just like, man, Dio does this better. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what made me pull back. Jake, what are your thoughts on this subject?
As far as the hero ability goes, right?
Yeah, just like, does the second line of
In
text
this
on
decklist?
Puffin? Yeah, does it lean more aggro when you read
Yeah.
Puffin?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it reads a little more aggro because you want those cards you're drawing to generate you value, right? So like if you draw a 0 for 4, that's way better than drawing a 0 for 2. Sure, the 0 for 2 is, in this deck at least, it could be a blue card and you can, if maybe you need the resources. But, with this, how many blues are in this deck? It's like a lot,
Currently
right? It's like
21. Currently 21.
Yeah, that's a decent amount. So like theoretically, you should already have like a blue in your hand, so you shouldn't need the resources. So yeah, drawing into another resource card would definitely feel bad. So I think for sure it does lean a little more aggro. So maybe you do, maybe, but that's the fun thing about spoiler season is that there's different ways to build these characters. And so, we don't know the quote unquote right way. I don't think there's a right way to build any character, but you get to see how a build would be. Maybe you do just play all these big attacks and do play pummels and just play, 3 card hands and maybe draw an extra card to get that resource to get the pummel off that's been in your arsenal or, etc.
Patrick, what are you thinking? When you first saw Puffin, were you leaning like, is this -IO 2.0, or were you thinking it would be something more like this iteration I have here?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully figured out how we're supposed to, like, what a optimized Puffin list is going to look like in a month from now. Because I do think, like you said, what you put together here, which is a lot better than what I would have put together, really utilizes, I think, or can utilize the first line of text on Puffin by using the extra action points to load and shoot pistol at minimum. But as to echo everybody's sentiments, that second line of text is really perplexing to me because it's sort of the first line. In what circumstance would you really prefer to have a golden cog to a gold? Like, meaning, like, if you already have a gold, you have the ability to draw a card for 2 resources anyway. So that suggests to me that this optimized list is going to have a way to simultaneously utilize the action points while having the extra card actually matter that much. And I'm not sure we're there on the second part of that with this list.
Well, cool, guys. I guess the one thing I want to mention before we leave here today is, Jake, you were not stoked at the prospect of being Queen Puffin and playing Crown of Dominion. What do you think now that we've kind of taken a look at a preliminary deck list?
You probably still don't need it. I don't think it's necessary. I think, well, I don't know. I think I need to see maybe a little more of like the commons and rares and whatnot. Maybe if you go, I could see an argument to go first, maybe, just so in case you get to high roll and make that golden cog. But I think we'll be okay making the gold.
I think I see Anthony Pham sleeving up his deck. Maybe we can get some thoughts from him before we leave here tonight. Yeah, put that sideboard away. Tell me what you're thinking, Anthony.
Yeah. Sorry, it was a really long match because it was a fatigue matchup. But yeah, man. Thoughts overall from what you guys have all said today and stuff. I'm a big supporter of Pistol Dash, and I think this is kind of like a different take on it. Back to the gun of choice. I do think the Go Again gun has a lot more merit to it because the most broken thing in Dash is, or like the usual mech is to lead off with like something. It's like a generic attack, just so that you kind of hide what you're doing for your turns. So like one more powerful things that Dash used to do is like pistol, go again, and then start boosting. So I think the go again gun has a lot more merit than just plus damage, because I'm sure she can find more damage elsewhere. She just kind of hides her turn really well if you can lead off with like 2 go again, 3 go again.
I could see that. Are you excited at the prospect of playing mid-range mechanologist, or is it going to be hard to pull that boost keyword out of your bare hands?
I'm still probably going to be running zipper hits, just because that's the best card of all time in mechanologist. But I will say that not boosting for once, or not boosting as often, will be very sad. But it will be cool to kind of maintain a board state. It'll kind of feel like Pistol Dash, but you're kind of online right away. Whereas in Pistol Dash, you kind of have to ramp up. Here, you can kind of do your crazy stuff in terms of as soon as you like get some cogs down, you can kind of go crazy.
I mean, I think if there's one thing to be said about Puffin, it's that she is one of the few mechanologists, I would even include Tekla in this, that isn't beholden to running like almost a straight 80 mechanologist cards, right? I mean, granted, Tekla can sprinkle in CNCs and stuff like that, but the majority of that deck still needs to be mechanologist, and I just don't feel that way about Puffin.
Yeah, she kind of breaks the mold of, I would say, breaks the mold of having mech cards in her deck, and it kind of opens her up to play stuff like CNC. I mean, having 6 copies of CNC is always going to be pretty good in your deck. With the Conqueror of the High Seas in the CNC. So I think this might be, hey guys, this might be the first mechanologist to use Tunic well, I guess. I guess Pistol Dash kind of did that, but it's going to be funny to see like a generic chest piece, probably a generic headpiece, probably a generic quick dodge flexors. It's going to be kind of just Pistol Dash all over again.
Well, cool, gentlemen. I think that's probably a good place to wrap up this discussion of Puffin Hightail and our spoiler card. I guess the last thing we should talk about is, after seeing this ramshackled deck, do we like Perk Up? Do we like the card that we got to spoil this season, Josh?
Yes. I think this card is actually perfect for the second line of text, especially where you're able to just like break a gold, then you can play this, get your second gold, and then you draw your card. I think, in my opinion, I think this is the best pump we've seen so far.
Definitely this set. I would have to agree with you there. Anthony, thoughts on Perk Up?
It's the best one from 4 revealed so far, I agree. And it can do some pretty nasty things, I think, with Puffin's hero ability, kind of getting that extra card advantage, extra cog in. Hey, guys.
Cog advantage. Hi. Jake Torres, you excited about cog advantage?
Yeah, oh yeah. Always excited for coggers.
You like Perk Up?
I love it, and I'm glad that I was correct on guessing the art. That's my victory for tonight.
Without a doubt, that is an old dude. You didn't get your block 3 though, and you were begging me for that, and it pained me every time you asked for it.
Just give me a pump that blocks 3, please.
Patrick, Greasy, what are you thinking, man? You like it?
I like it. I think it's going to be even better in the optimized, sort of more optimized Puffin lists that come down the line that are where that untap ability maybe is like there's more of like a train going with that. So at the very least, we have the cool Doc Brown art to lay our hand on.
Okay, and with that, Joshua Rath has a cerebellum processor squarely placed as an eye patch on his left eye, which means that it's time to go ahead and wrap it up here from us at the Arcane Games and Events Pro Team. And we will see you coming up at the end of the month, May 24th in Los Angeles, May 25th in New England. Only the Los Angeles tournament will be streamed this weekend because we simply can't teleport our gear overnight to New England. But that doesn't mean we are gone from there forever. We will be back the following month. So stick around and see what else Arcane Games and Events has to offer. Thank you all so much for joining us for a very special moment, our High Seas spoiler. And we will see you next time.